Nelson Mandela by Barbara Cramer. Who was Nelson Mandela? What if you lived in a country where you were judged by the color of your skin? If almost everyone you knew was black, but the government was controlled by a few white people. The government told where to live and where you could go to school. If they wanted the land you lived on, they could take it. White people made all the laws. They also decided who will rule the country. That's the way it was in South Africa, where Nelson Mandela lived. Mandela believed all people should be treated the same. The color of their skin should not matter. He became a fighter for equal rights. It was a hard battle. He spent many years in prison because of his beliefs, but he did not quit. His fight against racism made him a hero to people all around the world. Apartheid. In South Africa, there were laws that kept black and white people apart. Those laws were called apartheid. Black Africans who had to live in their own section of town. They had their own schools and hospitals that were not as nice as those for white people. It was a crime for them to eat in restaurants for white people or to ride white-only buses. The son of a chief. Mandela was born in South Africa in the village of Mavezu. On July 18, 1918, his father named him Haliana, which means troublemaker. His father was a chief of the Tembu tribe. One day when Mandela was very young, his father disagreed with a white judge in the village. The angry judge removed Mandela's father from his position as chief. He also took the family's land. Mandela's mother moved her family to a farm in the nearby village of Kunu, a new home. The family lived in 3 huts. One was for sleeping, one was for cooking, and one was for storage. The huts had mud walls, dirt floors, and grass roofs. Everyone had work to do. Mandela began herding goats and sheep when he was only 5 years old. When he was 7, Mandela became the first person in his family to attend school. On the first day, the teacher gave the students English names. She said he would be called Nelson. Changes. In 1930, Mandela's father died. He had been a friend to the king of Tembu people. After his death, the king invited 12-year-old Mandela to live with him. Mandela's mother did not want to let her son go, but she knew that the king would give him a good life. The great place had many buildings. Mandela was sad as he left Kunu. He wondered if he would ever see his village or his family again. When he got to the village of Makizuwini, Mandela could not believe his eyes. The king had the grandest home ever seen. It included 2 houses and 7 huts. It was known as the Great Place. Learning to lead. Mandela learned his first lessons about being a good leader from the king. In tribal meetings, the king gave everyone a chance to talk. He listened carefully to what each person said. The chiefs who visited the Great Place taught Mandela about the history of the tribe. They told him stories about African heroes. Mandela's education continued at a one-room school next to the Great Place until he was 15. Then he went to the Clackberry Boarding Institute about 60 miles away. In 1937, he moved to Hilltown to attend college. In his time. In the 1920s, when Nelson Mandela was a child in South Africa, was very different from how it is now. School. Many black children did not attend school at all. Most who did went to one-room schools in their villages. The schools were run by people who traveled to South Africa to do work for their church. Home life. A few wealthy families in Mandela's village are able to buy sugar, tea, and coffee, but most people ate only what they grew. That included beans, pumpkins, and corn. They drank milk from cows and goats. Transportation. Many white people drove cars, but Mandela and most others in his village walked. Toys and free time. Children in Mandela's village made their own toys using clay and sticks. They played such games as hide and seek and tag. The boys enjoyed stick fighting. History. South Africa was ruled by white European settlers. They owned much of the land and made all the laws. Student protest. Mandela started classes at Fort Hare University when he was 20 years old. He worked hard at his studies, but he had fun too. He was on the cross-country running team. He also played soccer. In his second year, Mandela was elected to serve at student council. There were about 150 students, but only 25 of them voted. The others were upset about how bad the food served in the cafeteria. They protested by not voting. Mandela was to support the other students. He said that he will not serve on the student council. The principal said Mandela needed to take his place on the student council or leave the school. Mandela left. Runaway. Back at the Great Place, Mandela learned the king was arranging a marriage for him. Mandela was not ready to get married, so he ran away to Johannesburg. It was a large modern city, but Mandela had to live in a section for black people only. The homes in the area were small. They had no electricity or running water. The only work black men could find was the gold and diamond mines in the area. The white owners were getting rich from the mines, but the black miners worked long hours for little pay. New ideas. Mandela got a job working as a clerk in the law office there. He wanted to become a lawyer, and this was the first step. He also took classes to finish college. He met many people in Johannesburg. Some of them were members of the African National Congress, aka the ANC, a group that worked for equal rights for black Africans. Mandela joined them in 1944. The same year, he married Evelyn Mace, the cousin of one of his best friends. They had 2 sons and 2 daughters. Sadly, one daughter died as a baby. By 1950s, Mandela had become a leader in the ANC. He helped organize marches and strikes. He was also busy with work. In 1952, he and his friend Oliver Tambo set up the first black law office in South Africa. Mandela left early in the morning for work. In the evenings, he had an ANC meetings. Many times he did not get home until late at night. His children were already sleeping. His oldest son asked why his father was not there more. Mandela tried to explain. He was working to make life better for millions of black Africans. A long trial. In 1956, Mandela was arrested along with 155 other activists. They were charged with treason or trying to overthrow the government. The trial lasted 4 years. Mandela's wife, Evelyn, did not agree with his work in the ANC. One day during the trial, she took their children and left. Their marriage was over. The trial was still going on when he met Winnie Madisikela. They were married in 1958 and had 2 daughters. A new direction. The trial finally ended in 1961. Mandela and those tried with him did not found guilty. After the trial, Mandela went into hiding. The government was watching him very closely. It was too dangerous for him to do his work in the ANC out in the open. He moved often so the police would not find him. He met with other ANC members in secret. Mandela said peaceful protests were not working. It was time to take stronger action. He helped create a military branch of the ANC and became its leader. Mandela traveled to other countries to get their help. He also trained to become a soldier. Life in prison. Soon after Mandela returned to the South, he was arrested. This time he was found guilty of leaving the country without a passport and of leading a strike. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison. While he was serving in his sentence, he was put on trial again. This time, he was charged with trying to overthrow the government. On June 11, 1964, he was sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison. Mandela was 45 years old. He was sent to the Robben Island of prison of the coast of Cape Town. His cell was small. When he lay down to sleep, his head touched one wall and his feet touched the other. His bed was a thin mat on the floor. He was given a bucket to use as a toilet. 8 cool facts about Mandela. In prison, Mandela secretly wrote a book about his fight for equal rights. That book, Long Walk to Freedom, was published in 1994. 2. Mandela enjoyed boxing for exercise. 3. Mandela was the 466th prisoner at the Robben Island in 1964. His prison number 466-64 became a sign of freedom. 4. To keep fit while he was in prison, Mandela ran in place for 45 minutes. Then he did 200 sit-ups and 100 push-ups. 5. Mandela planted a garden in the prison courtyard. He grew vegetables and fruit for both prisoners and guards. 6. Mandela has received more than 1,000 awards. More than 45 schools have been named after him. 7. One leader Mandela admired was Abraham Lincoln. Mandela learned about him in school. 8. Nelson Mandela International Day is celebrated every year on his birthday, July 18th. Free Mandela! In prison, Mandela was a leader. He used peaceful protests to help the prisoners get better food. They also got books so they could study. Other prisoners and even some of the white guards admired Mandela. He was brave and never gave up hope. Outside the prison, he was not forgotten. In the 1980s, the ANC started a Free Mandela campaign. Free Mandela posters went up all around the world. Students marched to show their support. Other governments could not buy products made in South Africa or play sports against the country's teams. Talking about peace. In 1982, after 18 years at Robben Island, Mandela was moved to a different prison. On the streets, fighting between the police and protesters were getting worse. Mandela knew it was time for a change. While still in prison, he met with people from South African government. They talked about peace and equal rights. In 1989, F.W. de Klerk became the new president of South Africa. He also wanted peace. On February 11, 1990, he released Mandela from prison. Mandela was 71 years old and he had spent 27 years of his life in prison. There was still a lot of work to do. President de Klerk had many meetings to talk about the future of South Africa. They did not always agree, but they worked together to end apartheid. They also worked to create a free country where all people of all races could vote. On April 27, 1994, black Africans in South Africa were able to vote for the first time. They elected Mandela. He became the first black president of South Africa. He was 75 years old. As president, he talked about forgiveness. The country had been divided. Now it was time for people of all races to work together. A new life. During Mandela's many years in prison, he and Winnie had both changed. They ended their marriage in 1996. 2 years later, on his 80th birthday, Mandela married Gracia Machel. Mandela served one 5-year term as president. Then he stepped down. He said it was time for a younger person to lead. In 1999, he spent most of his life in his house at Johannesburg. Mandela also had a country home in Kunu, the village where he lived as a child. He listened to music, spent time with family, and enjoyed watching the sunset. They were all things he had not been able to do for the many years when he was in prison. He died on December 5th, 2013, when he was 95 years old. It was a sad day for people around the world as they remembered the man who had inspired them. He taught us about courage as he fought bravely for equal rights. He showed us hope, never giving up even when almost everything was taken for him. He taught us how to forgive and showed us how to live in peace. He united a nation and changed the world, making it a better place for everyone. The end.